Schools, sports, music lessons, birthday parties, church gatherings, all upended by COVID for the past 2 years. And with Omicron spreading, it doesn't appear like life will return to normal just yet. School closures are once again on the rise. Burbio is a company that tracks school closings nationwide. According to their data, there were 646 COVID-related school closures this week. That's up from 356 the week before, an 82% increase. So with schools closing again and indoor mask mandates being reinstated from coast to coast, how are parents speaking to their children about this? I mean, what do you say to your kids when they ask, will this go away? Why do I have to wear a mask if I've been vaccinated? Do you have to wear a mask to school? Or even a simple question like, what's a virus? Joining us now is Dr. George James. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist at the Council for Relationships. Dr. James, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Joshua. Thanks for having me on.
Let's start with that last question. Daddy, what's a virus? How do you answer that for a kid?
You know, kids have always been really great asking adults and parents questions that we get stumped by, that we don't really sometimes know how to answer. And the best thing that we can do is try to be as honest as possible and age appropriate. So if a child is young, being able to say to them, you know, a virus is something that makes us sick. And if they're older, in their teenage years, you tell them a virus is not only something that makes us sick, but also how we can get it and what we can do. And especially for any child, you want to tell them how they can take care of themselves and how they can protect themselves, just like we would want to share with any adult.
What have you been seeing in terms of how families with children, particularly small children, are dealing with these conversations? Are we generally doing okay? Are we generally struggling? What are you seeing?
You know, for my field and my work and the clients that I see, I think all of us are struggling. This is producing a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty. And so if adults find themselves being anxious, your children are also anxious. And sometimes we want kids to just grow up or figure it out or deal with it. But kids also deal with it in ways that we do, but it just shows up differently. Maybe their behavior is changing. Maybe they're a little bit irritable. Maybe they're moody. Maybe they're trying to do things or trying to find understanding. So I think we are all struggling. And my advice is to be patient with your children, comfort them, love them, but give them also some guidance of what they can do during this tough time.
Our colleague Lindsay Reiser spoke to some parents here in New York City today. Here is what one parent told her. Watch.
So her brother had a positive COVID case in his classroom in preschool. So the preschool shut down for the rest of the week, and we're getting her tested out of precaution.
I think we know that it's not as bad for kids, right? So the fact that he can't get vaccinated isn't a big deal for him, but the fact that he could possibly be carrying it, and like his grandmother's supposed to come for Christmas, and we're trying to figure out what to do about that, is a little bit stressful.
Yeah, doctor, I think that's one of the reasons why this is so tough is because children are, they rely on their parents for a sense of safety, and parents, pull their hair out trying to keep their kids safe, and that mutual inability to assure safety, that feels like one of the hardest parts of this. What do you do if you're a parent who realizes, I can't make this all better for you? I can't guarantee that grandma's going to make it. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be all right. How do you deal with that as a parent?
Once again, these are very tough and difficult topics. And sometimes we have to tell our children some things that make them grow up, sometimes faster than we want to. Or about hard things and hard topics. Once again, age appropriately. We want to give them misinformation. We want to let them know that this is serious, or that we are concerned about grandma, or that we want to do our best to protect ourselves and those that we care about. At the same time, you can also say, mommy and daddy, or mommy, or your parents or guardians, we're trying our best to do what we can. We're going to give you the information, but we're going to try to protect you just like we've always have done. That sometimes can be helpful so that it reassures kids that as parents, you're doing your best to be there for them. And at the end of the day, you're going to work together as a family.
Two more things I'd love to ask you about. One is an email we got from a viewer, Meredith, who wrote to us about how kids who do take COVID seriously deal with people who don't. Meredith writes, I've watched my children's well-being negatively impacted as they have seen the large-scale dismissal of death and the minimization of the importance of a common good. As a parent, the part where I feel like I am falling down is trying to make sense of continuing to do the quote-unquote right thing in the face of so much hostility, disrespect, and anger. We are reminding each other that we are only able to control ourselves and how we react to others. However, pretending that stewing in this for the past 2 years hasn't impacted my kids' mental health would be dangerous denial. Dr. James, our kids are watching us. And I love that line from Into the Woods. Careful the things you say, children will listen. How do we deal with the way that children react to adults acting like children?
Yeah, you know, one of the wonderful things about children is that sometimes they can show us who we are. They can be an amazing reflection, the mirror even that we look at, that sometimes shows us some things about ourselves that we don't really want to accept. What I also love about children is that their honesty and their openness and their vulnerability to say, this is good. And we can also learn from them. You know, some kids are willing to put on the mask or to encourage others or to support their classmates. We can learn that from them. And I think, once again, to encourage that, and the thing I share with lots of people is think about your family values. Whatever your family values might be, this is a great time to encourage your children. So if it's about honesty, if it's about health, if it's about other people, you can share that during this time.
Last quick question, last 10 seconds. What do you do if your kid's afraid of needles and you got to deal with getting vaccinated before we go?
Hopefully a lollipop or a big hug or something that makes them feel good, but support them in a way that they can be loved.
And let them know some grown-ups that are afraid of needles too, so it's okay. Dr. George James, I appreciate you making time for us, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.